representative of Pakistan.
Mr. President, the Pakistan delegation aligns itself with the statement delivered by Uganda on behalf of the non-aligned movement. At the outset, I would like to extend my gratitude to the President of the International Court of Justice, Judge Nawaf Salam, for presenting the court's annual report contained in document A/79/4. I also wish to thank him for his insightful briefing on the vital role and functioning of the court. Mr. President, the International Court of Justice is an integral part of the international architecture established under the UN Charter and one of the principal organs of the United Nations. Justice is a critical component for the preservation of world order. The ICJ is the guardian of the principles of the UN Charter and the corpus of the laws which have emerged under the Charter's framework, treaties and conventions, the resolutions of the Security Council, UN declarations which have become common law, such as the one on friendly relations and the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. The Court offers equal protection of these laws to all states and peoples, and especially for states and peoples who are unable to secure justice for themselves. The ICJ has the competence to secure the universal application of those laws and to issue orders which are binding on member states. The Court also has a critical role in the resolution of conflicts and disputes in accordance with Article 36, Paragraph 1 of the Charter. Further, through its advisory opinions, the Court plays a central role in the interpretation and elaboration of international law. Mr. President, 75 countries have accepted the compulsory jurisdiction of the Court under Article 36 of its statute. This includes Pakistan. We greatly value the ability of the Court to resolve specific disputes and to be consulted by the General Assembly, by the Security Council and other UN organs on any legal question. Mr. President, the role of the ICJ has become even more indispensable today. The threats to global peace and security and violations of the UN Charter and its principles, especially the use of unilateral force, have multiplied. Many peoples, particularly the people of Palestine and occupied Jammu and Kashmir, continue to be subjected to foreign and colonial occupation and denied their right to self-determination. And genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity are being committed with impunity by some rogue states. In this context, and while the Security Council is virtually paralyzed by the frequent use and threat of the veto power of some permanent members of the Security Council, the ICJ has played a prominent role in upholding the principles of the UN Charter and international law. The ICJ's advisory opinion of 2004 on the construction of the wall by Israel was an important precursor to its provisional measures in response to South Africa's proceedings against Israel under the Genocide Convention, and also to the advisory opinion on Palestine issued on 19 July 2024, which has been endorsed by the General Assembly in Resolution 77/247. Pakistan made a written submission to the ICJ on Palestine in July 2023, later shared a rejoinder with the court, and then participated in the court's oral public hearing in February of 2024. Mr. President, the court's advisory opinions and its provisional measures represent a significant contribution to unraveling the issues involved in the case of Palestine and in setting out the basis for the resolution of the conflict. The ICJ's findings have established at least 4 core principles. 1, the obligation of Israel, the occupying power, to allow the exercise of the right to self-determination by the people of Palestine, both those within and outside the occupied Palestinian territory. 2, that the territory cannot be acquired by the use of force and military occupation. 3, Israel must be held accountable and pay for the damages caused as a consequence of its illegal occupation of Palestinian territory. And 4, the obligation of all other states and of the United Nations to support the exercise of self-determination by the Palestinian people and to execute the findings of the court. Mr. President, these and other conclusions flowing from the ICJ's findings have become legal precedent and have assumed the force of international law and norms with universal application. Indeed, these are principles and norms which must be applied to all similar situations of foreign military occupation and the denial of the right to self-determination, such as the situation in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Mr. President, given the proven capacity of the ICJ to play a meaningful role in the defense of international law and justice, it is essential to further strengthen the role of the court in the preservation of world order. To this end, Pakistan delegation suggests consideration of the following measures by the General Assembly and the Security Council. First, broadening the compulsory jurisdiction of the ICJ through the removal of reservations by member states and through a binding decision by the Security Council to provide such mandatory jurisdiction to the court for all items on the Security Council's agenda, or at least those where the Charter's principles and Security Council resolutions are being violated. Second, the UN organs should have greater and more frequent recourse to the ICJ's advisory opinions on specific disputes and on the fulfillment of the legal obligations of member states and international organizations. Third, the ICJ is also well placed to play a larger role in ensuring accountability of member states for the violations of international law and in determining the damage and compensation due to aggrieved parties. And fourth, the ICJ's bench should be enlarged to enable it to cope with a larger caseload and provided adequate budgetary resources to the court to undertake the heavier caseload. Mr. President, my delegation looks forward to the further discussion in consideration of these suggestions with other member states during the current session of the General Assembly. I thank you, sir.